In this video, I'm going to show you how to add effects onto any layer. So I have a couple of objects that I have already prepared. I took the paintbrush and I painted this ball. Actually, I'll paint some more things onto it. So there we go. We have a terrible shape. Uh, I also used the text tool to create some letters, and then I cropped out a figure and put them in the scene, as well as I put kind of a background here. Whatever object you have, say that I'm going to take this text. With that layer, in the bottom of the layers palette, we have a variety of different things. And over here is our effects, labeled FX. And that'll add an effect or a layer style to whatever that layer is. So when I click that, we can see that we have a bunch of different options here. And say that I want to give a drop shadow to this. We'll click on that and it'll give us some options of where that drop shadow is. It gives us this secondary window, and we can see right now we're adding a drop shadow. We could probably go through and click on a couple of these, so we could add multiple at a time if you want to do that. And it gives us ways that we can change this. Right now the color is black, and it'll blend with the bottom layer by darkening it. Right now it has an opacity of 100. I could probably drop that down. And we can see that it has a little preview over here. So if I change the angle that the light is coming from, as well as how far away is from the object and how much it spreads out, or how much the diffusion is by changing the size, we can see that that little icon will show a preview. As well as if we kind of come over here, we can see that it's trying to give us a preview on the scene, so we can get an idea of how that works. And that's coming out pretty nicely. And so I can press OK if I like that. And you can see in my layers, it adds those. And I can hide those momentarily, as well as I can drag them into the trash and delete them. But I think that I like that. And I can add multiple effects onto this. You can see maybe I want to add let's bevel and emboss this. So we're going to round out the words. And you can see that looks not too bad on there. And I have my kind of edge here. It's going to give like a little yellow glow. Maybe I want to give it a highlight kind of blue to it, which I think works well for the kind of blue that there is. And maybe my lower one, I don't want exactly black, but maybe I want to have it be a purple kind of vibe, as if there's like multiple interesting lights popping around. So that looks pretty good. And I can change the depth of how deep it goes and how sharp, and that's kind of changing how sharp it looks, like as if it's coming forward as well as I can alter the size a little bit, and it'll give us some slightly different effects. I kind of like how it looked lower. And then I'm going to take off a little bit of the sharpness because I don't want it to look like complete metal. And I can press OK. And you can see it just added it onto there. So I can hide the bevel, I can hide the shadows, and that's coming out really nicely for our words. So I'll show you how it works on different objects and how it can be used. So I'm going to hide that layer, and I'll bring up this object, and we can do a lot of interesting things. I'll bring up the effects. Maybe I want to give an inner glow. So around the edges, it's going to have a glow. And I'm going to bring that in, increase the size. And it's starting to look a little bit weird, but that almost kind of looks like a neon light a little bit. I can adjust kind of the range of how far it spreads out, kind of like that far spread, so it's nice and soft. And I want to make it, I don't know if I want it full opaque. I want there still to be a little bit of an edge. So I think it was kind of nice around 58. I think it's pretty good. Maybe I'll change the color. Red looks a little bit odd, but this bright yellow kind of gives it a little bit of life. So there we go. We kind of altered the shape to make it feel more three-dimensional. And I can do that to any objects. Maybe I want to give a shadow to this figure. But you want to think about how this feels in the entirety of the scene. So if I give a drop shadow to this figure, and we use most of the settings that were already there, maybe I'm going to change the angle that it's at, give it a little bit more distance from our figure. reduce the spread a little bit. I'm gonna bring down the size some. And I kind of want the distance to be a little bit further from it. So he's kind of like running next to a wall. And there we go, we have a shadow as if the light is coming over from the side at this figure. But it doesn't always work with the background. We can see on this, if we kind of zoom in a little bit more, that it's just randomly placed flatly against that background. And so this might work if I move him over here, so it's like kind of putting a shadow onto the tree and onto the floor a little bit. But when I had him over here in the center part, it starts to add that shadow onto the like random open spaces of the background. And so that doesn't always work so well. So when you are using effects, you want to think about what is your background, because the computer only knows these as flat things. They don't understand them as three-dimensional. So that's why it is sometimes better to do things by hand, but sometimes it can go very quickly if you can just throw an effect on, because that worked out really well for this title. How well it worked for this like little drawing that I did, I don't know. I'd have to play around with this a little bit more and maybe draw something that makes a little bit more sense in reality. But all that comes with more playing and more experimenting. So that is how to use the effects tools.